Welcome back to Fishing Without Bait, a lifetime without definitive expectations, where we help people create themselves rather than find themselves, where the only entrance requirement is the honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness to try. And we're continuing our fascinating conversation with Ryan and his journeys through wrestling and mental health.
It's been a whole journey just trying to like figure myself out, and you could do it too, because you're really interesting and you're going to be very interested in what you find out if you're feeling, especially if you're feeling a little effed up, which I felt from time to time. Sometimes I still feel that way. I feel like will always be working, and I'm at peace with that. Like, I'm excited about that part of my life where like I'm always going to be not always, but like for a long time I'm going to be working on this, and
We
things are
never
going to
get to
better.
the end. There's no finish line.
Okay, yeah.
We never get to the end. There is no finish line. And I like the way you're talking. I like the way you're talking to yourself right now.
Thanks. That's my capacity is still there for that, but I sit back and I do recognize the whack stuff in my life and the stuff that makes me feel like down. But like I also like I know things are getting better, and like it's very self-evident to me in the way that I feel, but then also in like the things that have been happening for me in the past year, especially. Past year was like big growth, some bumps for sure. Every year is going to have it. But yeah. God, I was reflecting, I think earlier, because I saw some pictures of myself from a show in Brooklyn I got to do, and I'm so excited to do like more this year. It's just January, and I just have to like, yeah, my knee already feels better from from that injury 2 weeks ago, and I'm excited about the future, which I couldn't say a year ago.
Now I really like the way you're talking.
So January of last year, I couldn't feel, if I can dig again, like I couldn't find that feeling of like being hopeful and optimistic for the future. And there was a plan, and in a relationship I was in, to like get out of Richmond. And then like that fell through, to say it as easily as I can. And I had to start like figuring out everything. I really had to start figuring out everything I possibly could, but I couldn't get like control of my panic attacks once my life plan changed. And that was the moment that like I think I went in for like to see my primary care, but I was like seeing him on an emergency basis.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying like, I need you to calm down. And I couldn't breathe properly. I remember like how I felt like I'd been running, but I wasn't doing anything. I was sitting on the couch. Like I had to leave work, like go out and handle that. And I remember him saying like, okay, like for a third time, like if you can't calm down, like you're leaving. And having to like, I had to get control. Like I had to change everything. I had to listen to him and start on a script, which was so easy and like such a light change, but changed everything for me. Like every day of like any sort of conflict. Again, I think I mentioned this earlier, my thought spirals. They didn't spiral out of control. But just very, very quickly, I had to like reformulate a plan and start a new life, and wound up relocating here kind of on a whim. I think like 2.5 weeks. And had like no idea what this place and like my future held for me at all, because like heck, it had already kind of been torn away, and being like so scared last March. And I know I was saying like let's say a year ago, this past January, couldn't see a future for myself, except like I was going to get out of town, and I had to do it like by myself, and I had to. I earned it.
Yeah.
But it's wild to think it actually hasn't even been a year since I got here, and like I do see hope for my immediate future. I started doing the wrestling again, which completes like such a circle for me, like fulfills me so much personally, that I don't know how to like put it into words. And it's not like I know a lot of like the behaviors attention seeking. I love the activity in the world of it. It's been here, and it's been like present in a broken home for me, or like a fractured home and a comfort for so long. The time I spent apart from it, which also had to do with like someone being a shithead and pardon me, someone being like a bad actor in my life and having bad behavior and me needing to bounce to kind of preserve myself. Sorry, I got off track again.
No. You're exactly on track. You're saying
Thanks.
you're saying what you need to say.
Yeah.
Everyone has a story, Ryan, and they need to tell it. It needs to be heard. But what a therapist can do is write a prescription for hope.
Valid, very valid.
Write a prescription for hope.
Mm-hmm. And that's like it's really important to get like a pro second opinion, especially if you're just listening to your own and it's negative, or really for any reason. But even if you're just there talking to have a sounding board, because life is difficult, even if you're not dealing with like complex issues or disorders, like it's hard out here. And just having like a rational second opinion on really any personal issue, or like just the way we're perceiving the world, which it's a mess. And hearing that from someone who really isn't there to judge you, because they're paid not to judge you or really tell your friends what you're thinking, etc., or like divulge your internal world. It's really helpful. It allows you. So it's allowed me to like open up that part of my mind. Like once I was like being considered, or perceived like, hey, I'm like being considered here flatly. It made it a lot easier to consider like others. And talking about that like concept of forgiveness, I think the closest I've got is that internal like, like I have no control over what happened to me, etc. And I've had that thought cross my mind. Well, they did the best they could, which is that's like a tough pill to swallow.
That's justification.
Yeah, I hear you. Yeah, do you think that's like, is that like personal ill will on myself, going like, oh, they did the best they could?
Your mind seeks calm water.
Yeah,
okay? It's called consonance.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So when you're thinking about the nasty negative things that they influence into your life, that's called dissonance. So let me give you an example. I dealt with this person one time. It's a perfect example of dissonance and consonance. They told me, they says, oh, I drink too much Red Bull. Oh, there's so many chemicals in it. Oh, there's so much sugar, all this stuff. And that's the dissonance, because what they were doing versus what they were thinking caused this inner conflict. But immediately their mind sought consonance that's a calming effect, by saying, but it tastes so good, and it helps me get so much done, and it helps me focus. So
yeah, but when you know the ugly side of it.
But when you talk about situations like that, you begin to justify it, so your mind calms a little bit.
Yeah, and I'd like to feel calm about those things mostly, because then, I can't say there were never joyful moments. Like I also have to think about like,
it couldn't have been all bad.
No.
Okay,
impossible. So like I think it's important for me to inflect that like not all bad. Like I don't see it all as a terrible time, which then brings in my justifications. They were doing their best. But yeah, it just like the weight, it's outweighed. It's outweighed.
Well, we talk on this show about 3 defense mechanisms that most people use in their life. Some people have them honed to a razor's edge, and that's avoidance, justification, and denial.
Right. I think I've been heavily avoidant, and like of all response after a certain point. So after hearing, I incurred like a traumatic abuse outside of the house, and the way that was handled was odd. And like the way I wasn't checked in on, it wasn't addressed until I was nearly like, I hate to get heavy, but like suicidal.
Okay.
And which was like the beginning of me seeing a therapist again, like for the 4th time in my life, new therapist, but 2nd time as an adult. And we got like the path to me like letting go and avoiding, because not only was it just like my expectation, I tell myself all the time, well, I should expect to be like burned or hurt in some way. And that's terrible, actually. Like, and I hate to say it out loud, but it was the fact, like, if I was going to be around my immediate family, and I would expect again, and even more denigration with the distance and like how could you? But if I was going to be around them, I'm certain I would have incurred like a personal scar, some kind of burn, or some reminder of my like small stature in that structure, and that it meant that like I deserved that positioning, and kind of the language that I grew up on meant that I deserved whatever was happening,
Of course.
wherever it came from, and it like it came from above.
Everyone has unfinished business in their life, and it sounds
Yeah.
like you have more than a little bit.
Yeah, like I'll have to address that someday. You know, like my folks are going to die one day, you know, and then I have to sit and wonder like if I'm going to go to a funeral, and not because I don't want to pay whatever respect I feel like I should, or commit to tradition, or just do the right thing, but because in my mind it's a loud public display of shouting and possibly being struck by a sibling or the other parent again. And like I genuinely, when you ask like would you invite these people to a party, F no. I'm trying not to swear.
Okay.
Absolutely not, because that's my expectation of the behavior. And so like consistently, like
Well,
that
your
is what I'm trying to.
expectations is based on historical
It's
data.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I think it's fair. Like I'm going to say, I think my perception of this is fair, and that if
your
I showed up,
perception's your reality.
yeah,
And, you know, naturally there's guilt and shame associated with
Yeah.
not loving your parents, even though they may have been monsters.
at times and many times.
And this is absolutely confirmed by religious guilt.
Yeah, we were one of those houses, non-denominational Christians, and God, if they had like the alternative acoustic rock band play in the the theater before the preaching, and God, if it wasn't just building to becoming a mega church and eventually got its own plot of land and grew, but like yeah, there was that like also bearing down the threat of hell. Like also just like being young and knowing like the reality that like death is close, and like knowing pretty much my whole life death is close. It can just happen because like that one thing wasn't the first instance of like me in youth facing, I don't know, maybe dying from someone else's physical force, and then knowing that hell exists, like, and being like, oh, I can't be on bad behavior, but everything I do is bad behavior and gets me punished. I'm going to be punished forever. God, eventually being able to let go of the concept of religion, and I will just say how I feel about it, that it is it's a fictitious lore we use to lull ourselves about our uncomfortability with death. And I get it. Do what you got to do to cope with that. But it is it has wrought havoc on my life, my ability to enjoy my life and be based in reality and understand and cope with people. Because I don't think about a mythical magic man in the sky weighing our morality on a scale, going, this person's going to burn and this person's going to walk around naked with wings in the sky forever. It's ludicrous. It is ludicrous to me personally. And and then I immediately feel the guilt and shame of anyone who feels very strongly about their religion, because like, yeah, it's your faith, and it bases you and it grounds you. God, any influence it had on my life almost put me in the ground.
Well, Ryan, not only do therapists introduce new concepts and new coping skills and a way to think differently, one of the most important jobs is to help them unlearn old thought patterns and behaviors.
Yeah. I wonder if I haven't just tacked on the ability to like learn a new thought pattern, but I haven't like tackled every unlearning of like the things that make me feel innately lesser than or unworthy of like things like the concept of love, which then like totally screws my abilities in to maintain like a consistent romantic relationship. I'm terribly anxiously attached.
Well, that's not a big surprise.
Got him.
So you would be a therapist's dream patient.
Yeah.
You would be like
and it makes a great wrestling character too.
You'd be like a case study. They'd just unwrap all the layers here and try to heal those particular layers. I mean, you know, therapists, psychiatrists, they talk about inner child, and people will go, ooh, ooh. It's true.
Yeah. I mean, like mine's there, and I try to like a lot of my like adult life is spent stating like what my inner child needed, what is me as a wrestler, but like something I needed as a kid to look at and go like, oh, like I feel so bad and low, but I can go and do something about it. And like actively, like, and so my character, the dumpster fire, such a negative term. And it's something someone with some station in the business said about me at a low point in my life. And when I was under a lot of duress from something that had happened, and screw them forever. But I decided instead to like spin that into like try to figure out what that means and like really like pathologize it in myself. And like, well, the fire's obviously just like energy built up from being frustrated and fed up. But what am I full of? What am I fed up on? And I started to think about this as like the garbage that other people were just dumping in my life before they bailed, before I could see that I should have been leaving first in a lot of situations. And fire is just like whatever spark, and like wrestling's the spark, the thing that allows me to express myself and like be vibrant. But yeah, I had to like think about taking that negative term, and it ate at me. Like it hurt to be called that. And then recontextualize it in my head and make it like some character. It's what I need. It's what I needed when I was too young to understand how to protect myself emotionally or physically. So my character's my wrestling character's so much a personal extension. It's someone who's endured a bit and filled it up and held it, because like I think I have a big heart. And so like if my big heart's people look at it like an old dumpster and just dumping it. Oh God, it's been full for so long. Getting to like practice my hobby burns that off.
Well, I'm glad
that's like very healing.
I'm glad you have your wrestling persona and your wrestling career in order to express a whole lot of things in your life and really enjoy it.
It's helpful. Like wrestling wasn't that way before. It was just like something I did. But like now what I'm doing as I present myself like on stage, yes, thank you.
Everyone has an inner child that needs healed.
Mm-hmm.
Needs healed, and the child needs to be told that you're okay and that you're safe now. The child needs to know that they're safe, Ryan.
Yeah, that's true. And God, I keep finding like more safety in myself all the time.
Wow. And the more you learn how to speak to yourself as you'd speak to a friend.
Positively, yeah.
But again, I think we need to slow down the merry-go-round before that can be effective.
You're right. Yeah.
So, we could talk the rest of the evening, but
I really could.
But I'd love to have you back on the show again. Usually what we do is maybe like 6 or 7 months, we like to have a person back and find out where they're at in their life then. So
you think I can pull off an Adderall script by then?
we often have challenge podcasts, and we're gonna challenge you.
Yeah.
We're going to challenge you to take charge of your life, to
invest
in yourself.
Yes.
And invest in yourself through mental health and possible medication.
Yeah. I could expand on that or get back to that. I think anything else besides the ADD?
Well, I think
diagnose me on the air.
If you sit in front of a psychiatrist, a practitioner,
they'll tell me.
They'll start one thing at a time, okay?
Yeah.
So we're not going to reverse the Titanic in a bathtub, all right? So we'll do one thing at a time. But you're a fascinating guy. I'm certainly really happy to meet you.
Yeah, you as well.
I'm happy to meet you. I'm happy to meet you tonight. So at the end of every podcast, what we have is a free prescription: fruits, nuts, and vegetables, and unplug your television. And take up fishing, and for a truly mindful experience, we suggest that you fish without bait. And our challenge to you is to do a kindness for yourself and do a kindness for another, to forgive yourself and to forgive another. Till all are free, none are free. If we're all not the divine's children, none of us are. Be good to yourself today and every day. Namaste, my friends.
If you're interested in flying the colors of fishing without bait, click the shop icon on our website. We have clothing, mugs, cell phone cases, and so much more. Show the world that you fish without bait. This show is a member of the Sorgatron Media Podcast Network. Find out more at sorgatronmedia.com.